Hey girl, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Lindsey, and today I'm dropping a brand new episode just for you. If you are a former athlete, you were a dancer, a runner, a gymnast, a swimmer, all of the things, friend, we're talking about why former athletes struggle with recovery and how to use your competitive edge. I hope you love this one. Let's hop in. Hey girl, welcome to the Her Best Self podcast. I'm Lindsey Nickel, former competitive figure skater and perfectionist, turned God-led imperfect boy mom and digital CEO. If you find yourself constantly thinking about food and wondering if you'll wake up one day free from the obsessive thoughts and behaviors controlling your life, then I've created this podcast for you because I know exactly what it's like to be a downright hot mess trapped in a destructive cycle of disordered eating. I finally found freedom, and you can too, girlfriend. So if you're ready to heal your relationship with food and body and break the chains of control and show up in your best health, then grab your favorite Tarjay journal and let's get to it so you can start living your best life as your best self. Happy new day, sister friend. I'm going to do my best to get through this episode with you today because I just love spending time with you and I love that you're listening to the show. It honestly is such an honor to have so many listeners and new listeners week to week. And so thank you so much if you have been a regular listener or you're binging the show. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to meet you. Come on out to our private Facebook community. You can find us at herbestselfsociety.com. And I'm going to do my best to get through this one because both of my boys are off of school now. And so they are home today. And it is just me. And so in between clients and in between all the things, I am doing my best to get this recorded so that you can have a brand new episode to listen to. If you're a former athlete and you're listening today, I want you to know that this episode is for you, girl, because here's what I've discovered after years of coaching women in recovery, that former athletes, they don't just struggle more with recovery. They actually struggle more with even believing that freedom from their eating disorder is possible. And if you're sitting right there thinking, well, maybe recovery works for other people, or I've tried this before, I've been to therapists, but I just find myself constantly back here. I feel like it doesn't work for someone like me, or not for someone who is supposed to be disciplined or a control freak majority of the time, or loves rigid routines or has perfectionism tendencies. Today we're diving into why your athletic background makes finding freedom feel so much harder than it should, and more importantly, how to flip that script and use your competitive edge to finally break free. Because if you've ever thought you should be able to handle this on your own, or why does everyone else go through this and actually get to the other side of it, then this episode is going to be a game changer for you. So here we go. I want to talk a little bit about my story, and I'm not going to get too detailed here because if you've been listening to the show or if you want to hear more about me and my story, you can go through the beginning of the podcast. Obviously, I talk a lot about my story on various different episodes just so that you can understand that I am no different from you. I am just a girl that was told early on that small girls finish first. I am just a girl that believed that if I wanted to be seen and heard and loved and known, that I needed to drop weight. And so I did that. I want you to hear this. Your worth is not your weight. But if you've been an athlete, just like I was a figure skater for years. I competed professionally all over. Actually, the Washington, D.C. Figure Skating Club was my home. But if you have been in a sport that's similar to that environment, where your worth was directly tied to your weight, your performance, your placement, mine was my success on the ice. My entire identity was wrapped up in being the perfect skater. That meant disciplined. I mean, I was up at 4 a.m. every single day to get to the rink before the birds even woke up. That meant controlled. I was on top of my food intake. And that meant flawless in terms of flawless performances. There was not a lot of room for error. And if this sounds familiar, this is what I want you to hear. When you're a former athlete with an eating disorder, seeking help, it feels like admitting that you're weak or that you failed. And weakness was never an option in your sport, was it? And so as I started recovering myself, I wondered why it was different for me than some other people that I was in support groups with. Well, as an athlete, you're taught that champions push through pain and that quitters never win, and that asking for help means that you're just not tough enough and you're not good enough. I even remember when I was little, I would hear from my coach the words, "If you're not first, you're last." And so that was something, I don't even know, I've even caught myself saying that to my kids. We're brought up in that environment where like you have to be number one. And while that can serve you so well in life, and I actually do think being a figure skater served me in other areas of my life, when it came to my eating disorder, it took over. I did what I was trained to do, and that was handle it, conquer it, be the champion. And so if you have been in a sport or you've been a prior athlete, you'll understand when I say this. You try to discipline your way out. You attempt to perfect everything you do. And then also you get super frustrated when you find yourself trapped in the eating disorder thoughts. And it's like the one thing that you can't figure out. And here's what research tells us. According to the National Eating Disorders Association, athletes are 2 to 3 times more likely to develop an eating disorder than non-athletes. But here's the part that breaks my heart. Former athletes are 60% less likely to seek treatment because they actually view their eating disorder as a personal failure rather than a mental health condition. Here's the news of the day. You're not failing, sis. You're fighting a battle with weapons that were designed for a completely different war. Okay, hear me out. For years, maybe decades, just like me, you weren't someone who simply played a sport. You were that sport. Okay, your entire self and sense of self was built around being the disciplined one, the controlled one, the one that could handle anything. With skating, was skating. I was up at the crack of dawn. I was there in the afternoon after school. I missed dances. I missed so many things. I spent my summers in Lake Placid where I trained at the Olympic arena. And maybe even if you weren't that competitive, if you were in a sport, let's say you were a runner, your entire self was built around being the quickest, the fastest, the most controlled, the most disciplined. And the one who could simply handle anything and everything that other people just didn't understand. And when that identity gets threatened, whether through an injury or retirement or just life changes, because my peak of my career at skating was probably 14 to 18. After that, you really get up there in age. And so you don't see a lot of the next level is either coaching other skaters, which is something that I went into when I was in my 20s. But it's that or going into an international skating opportunity. And so during that time, you can be left asking, who am I without my sport? But more importantly, who am I if I can't even control my own eating or my weight? What am I going to do now? Right? It's this whole life change. It's this whole debacle. But this is where the eating disorder steps in and whispers to you, you don't need help. You just need more discipline. You just need to try harder. Because real athletes, real gymnasts, real swimmers, they don't quit. But that voice, girl, that's not your athletic wisdom that's talking to you. That's not your coach. That's your eating disorder voice that is just wearing your athletic identity like a disguise. So let's talk about why finding freedom feels so much harder for you than maybe the average person. First, you were conditioned to believe that your body is a machine to be controlled, not a home to be honored. And let me break this down a little bit. In your sport, your body was a tool for performance. You learned to ignore hunger. You learned to push through failure. You learned to view physical discomfort as a weakness. And the eating disorder voice took this training and said, perfect. Now we're going to use all these skills to control your food and your weight. Looking at it through that filter is, again, part of that twist of identity. And this is why freedom feels so hard. Secondly, you're terrified of losing your edge. So research from the Journal of Clinical Sports Psychology shows that 78% of former athletes repeat fearing that recovery will make them soft or undisciplined. Isn't that crazy? You were legit scared that if you let go of rigid control, you're going to lose the qualities that made you so successful. But here's the thing. If we don't allow ourselves to go there and actually retire, or if we don't allow ourselves to let some of that go, we will constantly allow it to be our very excuse. This is just who I am. This is just how I am. Not anymore, sister friend. It is time to release it and move on. Thirdly, you're used to measurable progress. So in athletics, you had times, you had scores, you had rankings, again, you had medals, and progress was super quantifiable for you. So you could put a number on it. Again, like I mentioned, if you weren't first, you're last. If you weren't on the podium, you needed to go home and you needed to rework what you were going to do to make things happen next time. But recovery is messy. It's not linear. There isn't this visible place where your name is listed so that everyone can applaud you if you win. And your athletic brain keeps asking, how do I know if I'm winning at this? And there isn't always a clear answer, and there's not a bunch of applause, and no one can give you that affirmation. There's going to be a lot of days where you have to give yourself your own affirmation. And that's why a coach can come in alongside you and be like, you are winning, girl. You are crushing it. I'm so proud of you. Fourth, and this is a big one, you've been taught that your worth is earned through performance. I was on top of the world if I had a clean program. And if I fell, or if I slipped, or if I did anything out of the ordinary, then my value was tarnished. And that is awful. That is so awful. But if you're listening to this, you can understand if you've been there and done that and gotten the t-shirt and you were an athlete. Your value wasn't inherent. It was something that you had to prove every single day through hard work and results and discipline and your control. And your eating disorder promises to give you that same sense of earned worth. And this is why it can be so crippling to escape from. So when someone suggests recovery and they say to you, it would be great for us to work on weight restoration, or it looks like you need to be eating more, your athletic brain literally hears, it looks like you need to become worthless. It looks like you're going to be weaker. It looks like you're going to become lazy or undisciplined. So no wonder why freedom feels super impossible. And that feels so hard for your brain. I actually had a client, she was a former Division I runner, and she told me, Lindsey, I've been trying to recover for 3 years, but every single time I start eating more, I feel like I'm betraying everything that I used to be. Like, why was it that I could run on fumes before and run for 2.5 hours, but now I can no longer do that? Does that hit home for you? I hope so. Because I want us to talk about the elephant in the room. And this is why your perfectionism makes freedom feel so terrifying. So back to some research, because you know how I love my research. 89% of elite athletes score high on perfectionism scales compared to 32% of the general population. So here's what's happening in your mind. Your eating disorder has convinced you over time that this is your perfectionism. That without the rigid control over food and body, you're going to become lazy, you're going to become undisciplined, you're going to become average. And that is everything that you trained not to be. Am I right? I mean, I never wanted to be average. Recovery requires you to be imperfect. To gain weight when your athletic brain says athletes are lean, smaller is better, to eat when you're not hungry because your body needs repair, to rest when every single fiber of your being says champions train harder, you don't need to rest. Your eating disorder whispers. If you recover, you'll lose your competitive edge. You'll become ordinary. You'll prove that you were never really that good enough after all. You will prove that you were never disciplined. And this is why freedom feels impossible, even if you haven't been practicing in your sport or being competitive in your sport for years, because it literally feels like identity suicide. But here's what I want you to understand. Your perfectionism isn't the problem. Your eating disorder isn't your perfectionism. And your eating disorder is a counterfeit version of perfectionism that's been slowly destroying the very qualities that you're trying to protect. And when you can figure this out, you can rise. True perfectionism, the kind that made you a champion, is about optimal performance. And sister, starving your body, obsessing over food, scared that your jeans are fitting too tight, and living in fear is the opposite of optimal performance. So here is your first breakthrough moment that I want you to take away from today's show. What if recovery isn't about being less disciplined? Have you thought of that? Like, what if it's about becoming disciplined about the right things? Instead of pursuing perfect restriction, what if you pursued nourishment? Instead of chasing your perfect beach body, what if you chased perfect mental freedom? Instead of aiming for that flawless control over food and counting every calorie or step, what if you aimed for flawless commitment to your dreams and goals, which is not being chained by this? Am I right? So here's where we need to get really honest about strength. Because if you've grown up in a world where a sport was what you were, right? Like you felt like that was who you were, then maybe you've been led to believe that restriction is strength. I want you to think about that. That saying no to food is actually willpower. That controlling your body is actually discipline. But let me ask you something. Is it stronger to live in fear of a piece of bread or to eat it without thinking about it? Is it more disciplined to count every calorie or to trust that your body knows where it needs to be? Is it more controlled to weigh yourself regularly or to base your worth on something that is absolutely not tied to a number? Research from Stanford University shows that the strongest predictor of eating disorder recovery, it isn't willpower and it's not discipline. It's actually the ability to tolerate uncertainty and discomfort while taking actions. It's not willpower. It's not discipline. It's actually the ability to tolerate uncertainty and take action. So here's the translation. The strongest thing you can do is feel scared about gaining weight and eat the meal anyway because you value your freedom more than you value your fear. That's not weakness. That's warrior level courage. And I'm going to get all hyped up, but I had another client. She was a former dancer and she said, Lindsey, I finally realized that my eating disorder was making me the weakest version of myself. And I was strong enough to get on the dance floor and dance all flipping day, but I was too weak to eat lunch without having a panic attack. The eating disorder had convinced her that restriction was strength, but really it was making her weaker. It was making her disappear. And here's what true and real strength looks like. It's choosing recovery when everything in your athletic brain is screaming that it's going against what you know. It's eating the meal when you're terrified that you're going to lose control or overeat. It's gaining weight when your sport taught you that smaller was better and you were going to need to be smaller in order to place well. It's asking for help when you were trained to handle it all by yourself and figure it out. And it's trusting the process when you don't see the immediate success or the immediate results. And that's not just strength, sis. That is the ultimate championship performance of your life. Okay, so I want us to talk about how you can flip this narrative and you can turn your competitive nature into your superpower. Research shows that athletes who reframe their competitive drive toward recovery goals rather than controlling everything have 73% higher success rates. And here's how this works. Instead of comparing yourself against other women's bodies, you're going to compete against your eating disorder. Instead of comparing yourself against other skaters, insert what Lindsey used to do, I'm going to compete against myself and that past version of myself. Every meal you eat is a point scored against the disorder. Every rest day that you honor is a victory lap. And every time that you choose to nourish yourself over restricting yourself, you're winning the championship game of your life. Because your eating disorder has been the opponent the entire time. And you've been letting her win. But that's only because you thought that she was on your team. Sis, she's not your friend. She is Regina George in Mean Girls. And recovery isn't about becoming weak or undisciplined or average or settling. Recovery is the most elite performance challenge that you will ever freaking face. Because breaking free from an eating disorder requires more mental toughness than any sport you have ever played. And it requires more discipline than any training regimen you've ever followed. And it requires more courage than any competition you have ever entered. And your competitive edge, it isn't a liability. It's actually your secret weapon. You just have to aim it at the right opponent. Because the real competition, it isn't somebody on the other side of the court. It isn't somebody that you've been trying to compete against and win against for years, or even other women's bodies. The real competition is between the version of you that wants to stay controlled and small and the version of you that wants to be free and fully alive. So which version are you going to let win? Here's your game plan. First, I want you to redefine what success looks like for you. Because strength isn't restriction, it's resilience. Strength isn't smaller, it's braver. Strength isn't control, it's showing up when you're scared. Second, I want you to understand that asking for help is the most athletic thing you can possibly do, because we all know that every elite athlete has coaches. Every elite athlete has trainers and nutritionists and sports psychologists, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Why would the most important competition of your life be any different? If you were at the top level of your sport at one point, did you get there by yourself? I highly doubt it. Third, I want you to apply your goal setting process to recovery. So I want you to set specific and measurable goals. Instead of, I want to try to eat less tomorrow, how about I want to try to eat 3 meals and 2 snacks every single day of this week, and I'm not going to sit here and negotiate that anymore. Fourth, I want you to embrace a training mindset. You know what it's like to be crushing it. Some days are going to feel easy and some days are going to feel impossible. And I remember getting up and getting ready to go into a cold ice rink, and there were days it was like I just wanted to lay in bed. But I went every day. I went when I had the flu. I went when I wanted to lay in bed. I went when I didn't want to go. I even went when I had a broken toe. Okay, I do not recommend it, but there it goes. I had to drop that on the pod. Yes, I skated with a broken toe. I'm ridiculous. I know. You never expect every single day to feel like you're on top of the world or to feel amazing. So don't expect every single day in recovery to feel comfortable for you either. There's gonna be days where you're just not having it. There's gonna be days you show up with a freaking broken toe, okay? You're deciding, you're committing, and you're doing. And freedom isn't perfect. It's messy and it's scary and it's uncertain, but it's also the most beautiful thing that you will experience. So listen in today. If everything I've shared is hitting you right where it needs to, and if you're finally ready to stop fighting this battle by yourself, then I truly believe you have in you what it takes to change your life. I know that you're a champion. I know that you went out of this. And girl, if you were an athlete, then you have the will and the discipline. You just need the courage. I created the Best Self Breakthrough. It's a recent program that I put together, and it is specifically for you if you are just done and you want freedom. It's not therapy, it's not a support group, and it's definitely not another gentle recovery holistic approach, okay? This is a strategic, intensive coaching experience that is designed if you view yourself as like an elite performer and you're ready to challenge yourself into healing. We're gonna take everything that made you a champion and we're gonna redirect it toward the most important win of your life, and that is your freedom. Just like athletic opportunities and recovery opportunities require you to take action, you have to show up for you. Your eating disorder, it wants you to wait, it wants you to quit, it wants you to have a down day where it has control back in the driver's seat. It wants you to think about working with a coach or researching more or finding the perfect person to work with until you feel ready enough, right? Or after summer. But girl, champions don't wait for perfect conditions. Hear me. They create them. You create your future you. And if you're ready to stop letting your greatest strengths work against you and you want to start using those strengths to set you free, then I want to talk with you. I want to meet you. I just want to chat with you. It is super informal. There is nothing to be ashamed of, or we simply get on a call and we chat over Zoom and I get to meet you. I get to learn about you. I get to hear about your biggest challenges and how I can help support you. So I don't want you to wait for you to feel ready. I want you to start deciding that you're a champion. Freedom actually happens the moment that you decide that you're going to show up as a champion. So sis, I want to remind you today, if nothing else, you have exactly what it takes today to change your life. Stop trying to recover perfectly or stop trying to wait for the perfect time. Real competition isn't other people. Real competition is between the version of you that wants you to stay controlled and small and chained and the version of you that wants to be free and fully present. So what's it going to be? What's it going to be? I can't wait to hear from you. I hope this one challenged your thinking today. I love you, girl, and I'll see you real soon. Until then, be a champion, because I know that you truly are. Oh, friend, thank you so much for letting me share what was on my heart today. My hope for this podcast is to help more women find freedom from food and body. If this has empowered or blessed you, let me know. I'd be honored for your rating and review of my show, and I'd love to connect with you in my private Facebook community. You really can move from perfection to purpose. Let's break the chains together. I'll help navigate the way. Until next time, bye for now, girl.